It's quite possible that you are unaware of the fact that governments at all levels in this country, including the legacy media with the CBC leading the charge, as per usual, have been aggressively promoting and even funding drag shows for kids disguised as drag queen story hours. Now, if that sounds like something you might object to, just wait. There's an even newer phenomenon that appears to be exclusively Canadian at this point, and that is a concerted political effort to criminalize anyone who protests these drag shows for kids. To be clear, they're trying to make it illegal for you, a Canadian citizen, to protest a drag queen story hour, which is nothing more than a man wearing a woman's costume dancing in front of children. They want to make that illegal. Now, luckily, for the time being, the people pushing this political effort have done everything humanly possible to not be taken seriously. Just stick around, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. As always, drop a like in the video, help us out by subscribing to the True North YouTube channel, and the comment question for the episode is this: why are these drag queens, men, so desperate to read books in front of our children? Let me know, and let's get into it. Here is Ontario NDP politician Kristyn Wong-Tam, who uses they/them pronouns, obviously, introducing legislation to make it illegal in Ontario to protest drag queen story hours. Now, for whatever reason, people aren't taking Kristyn Wong-Tam seriously. I don't know why.
Firstly, it enables the Attorney General to create a 2S LGBTQI+ community safety zone to prohibit within 100 meters of the property any homophobic, transphobic act of intimidation, threat, offensive threats, offensive remarks, protest, disturbance, and distribution of hate propaganda within the meaning of the criminal code. It also comes with it a penalty of $25,000 if prosecuted successfully.
But they're trying to make it illegal for anyone to stand within 100 meters of a child drag show and raise any objection at all. And to really hammer home the point and be taken totally seriously, Kristyn Wong-Tam brought out Beetlejuice to explain why this bill is so important.
We will not let fear win. A world without trans people has never existed. A world without drag has never existed, and it never will. Queer people have always been here amongst us. They are our coworkers. They are our brothers, our sisters. They are our mothers, our fathers. They are our families. Drag is art. Drag is culture. Drag is educational. Drag is creative. Drag is comedy, but drag is not a crime. My name is Scarlett Bobo, and thank you so much for your time.
It's showtime.
Am I the only person that feels bad for the guy in the back left corner who obviously walked into the wrong press conference? Wait a second, this isn't the budget meeting I was supposed to go to. Anyway, I'm just going to sit here and try to act as though everything is normal. Now, I'm about 95% sure that this bill will not be approved in the Ontario legislature. I only say 95% because a part of me feels as though the Ontario Conservatives, who are the least conservative party in Canada, might actually vote for this bill. They only vote against NDP private members' bills on principle, not because they actually oppose the legislation. And nothing from these progressive conservatives would surprise me at this point. But this exact piece of legislation is law in the city of Calgary. A few weeks ago, Calgary City Council passed the hilariously titled Safe and Inclusive Bylaw, which would establish a 100-meter no-protest zone around city facilities and libraries hosting drag queen story hours. So in Calgary, you're allowed to protest environmental issues, lack of bike lanes, taxes, anywhere you'd like. But the second you dare to take issue with men dressed up as women dancing in front of children within 100 meters of that location, well, you're going to get a fine of up to $10,000 or even a year in prison. Now, it obviously goes without saying, but all of this is clearly unconstitutional. The Canadian Constitution Foundation slammed this bylaw and said this: "This bylaw is a clear example of a short-sighted council pushing through an unconstitutional bylaw because of a current cultural touchpoint. The debate at council makes it quite clear that the concern driving this rush to enact the protest ban is protests at drag queen story hours. However, Calgarians have a right to protest such events and indeed a right to protest any topic they choose. Calgary City Council has closed its eyes to the potential unforeseen consequences of this bylaw being used to silence speech that they themselves may agree with." Now, to be honest, the politicians pushing these unconstitutional laws don't actually have to push these laws. Before this Calgary bylaw was in place, Pastor Derek Reimer was arrested for peacefully protesting a child drag show. And in Ontario, a 17-year-old high school student, Josh Alexander, was arrested and expelled from his high school for proclaiming that there are only two genders. Now, if you can be arrested for protesting a child drag show, and you can be expelled from your high school for proclaiming the truth, then why even bother pushing the legislation? The federally funded Carousel Theater for Young People is hosting a drag show camp for kids, aged 7 to 11, where these kids are given drag show makeup kits. Totally normal. Last week, CBC News put together a 10-minute video segment titled Queens and Kids in Class, an honest conversation about drag, gender, and dress-up, in which two men sit in a classroom and talk to very confused and very uncomfortable children. While the state broadcaster using your money is totally not trying to normalize drag shows for kids, totally not trying to normalize that, they're just putting this together. A few years ago, the CBC, again using your taxpayer funds for great purposes for advancing Canadian culture, put together a documentary called Drag Kids with a description that reads, "A daring and touching portrait of 4 kids chasing freedom and friendship through the art of drag." And over the weekend at the Trans Day of Visibility protest in Vancouver, Billboard Chris, who many of you likely know, was violently assaulted by a group of transgender activists as the Vancouver police watched on smirking as Chris was violently assaulted. Oh, and the Vancouver Police Department deputy chief, he was more concerned about the nasty reaction given toward the police officer rather than the brutal assault on Billboard Chris, because of course they were. But is it really any wonder why parents are taking issue with child drag shows? With the normalization of this behavior in front of young children? Clearly, there is an effort to try and normalize youth transgenderism. That's why they have men dressed up as women trying to act as though that's totally normal in front of children. Now, perhaps parents are protesting all of this because they might have read this study in the Canadian Medical Association Journal. Transgender adolescents showed 5 times the risk of suicidal ideation than non-transgender adolescents in Canada. So we have the state, pop culture, politicians trying to normalize youth transgenderism through the practice of child drag shows, when data that is publicly available for parents shows that this leads to a spike in suicidal ideation. The Ratio of the Week award goes to Kristyn Wong-Tam for her tweet thread detailing how proud she is for introducing a ban on protesting child drag shows in Ontario. 276 replies to only 98 likes on her first tweet. She did this entire long tweet thread about how proud she is to introduce this unconstitutional bill. Here's some of the comments. "Keep it in the legal drinking age club, sir. We must ask the question as to why drag queens crave audiences of children." Yes, exactly. That is the common question of the episode as well. Why are these people so desperate to perform adult entertainment in front of children? Nobody took issue when drag queens did whatever they did in bars and clubs. Adults are allowed to do whatever they want to do. But when you start involving children and then you criminalize protests against that, that's when we have a problem. You're kidding, right? Sickening. Love us or else. You will love us. You will respect us. Or else we'll make you pay $25,000 to the state, or if you live in Calgary, you could go to prison for a year. Totally normal times. That is going to do it for us this week on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great Easter long weekend. I'll be back on Thursday. My name is Harrison Faulkner, and this is Ratio.